there's a whole spree of people that die around the Kennedy assassination. And I think this may be the most famous in terms of how high she was as a kind of in the ruling elite. She's not one of the rulers, but she is in those elite, or was in those elite political circles. So her name is Mary Pinchot Meyer. Mary Meyer is what she's mainly known as. And for those of you who don't know, she was murdered in broad daylight about a year, October 12th, 1964, about a year after Kennedy was killed. And she was the well-known mistress of John F. Kennedy. There's photos of her. Actually, the photo in Wikipedia of her is at JFK's 46th birthday party on the presidential yacht. So she's on the presidential yacht with JFK. Jackie Onassis knew that they had a relationship. Many say that Mary Meyer, who had known JFK since her high school days, was the true love of his life. And anyway, before she was his mistress, she was married to one of the higher ups in the CIA named Meyer. And she then divorces him, and that's when her affair with JFK really becomes far more common. They're connected far more often. They may not have had any affair until she got divorced from Meyer. But so she is murdered in broad daylight on the canal towpath in Washington, D.C., shot twice, once in the back of the head. And they pin it. So this is at like noon or 10 a.m. or something on broad daylight. They then immediately, the cops come down when they're called, and they immediately grab a young black man that had the misfortune of being out there. Now, whether he was set up to be out there so they would have someone to pin it on, I don't know. That's tougher to prove. But so they pin it on this poor guy, Ray Crump Jr., who they never find a weapon. They never find any ballistics evidence. There's no gunpowder burns on his hands or gunpowder residue. None of that. They don't find anything connecting him to this murder except that he's a young black man near it. That's the extent of their evidence. Mary Meyer is murdered and young black man nearby. And by the way, by nearby, I don't mean he was standing over the body. They found him somewhere else along the canal. And so they then try him in a court of law, and he actually gets acquitted because the defense is actually good. They point out that there's no evidence, and he gets off. Now, it still destroyed his life in a plenty of ways. But anyway, so he was never convicted of it. But so why? The question is, why would they kill Mary Meyer? Why would the CIA or whoever else murder Mary Meyer? Because it seems like you create more problems than you had. If you're going to kill someone, you've got to frame someone. You got to try and make that stick, all this other stuff. Well, she apparently had a lot of information about JFK. She was very close with him. She had a diary, a journal that has been missing since that day, which we know from other testimony that various people in the CIA went to her residence in Georgetown the night that she was murdered. So she's murdered, and then at 10 a.m. and then later that night, they break into her house in order to basically find this journal. Now, why would they do that if it wasn't that important? So the journal is never found. It likely was burned shortly after. But not only did she have a journal of everything JFK was saying, but she very much knew that the Warren Commission was all false, all wrong, which pinning it on Oswald as a lone gunman. And she very much knew that JFK was worried about the CIA. JFK was working quite hard to break up the CIA, to decrease their funding, to make them a far less powerful entity. JFK had already fired Allen Dulles, considered like the godfather of the CIA, and he had fired the top two in control. And yet Allen Dulles, despite being fired, by all accounts, continued to run the thing. So the higher ups that took over, basically called him all the time for his advice. Um, and Dulles also then was one of the top people on the Warren Commission. So JFK fires this guy from the CIA because he hates him and he's lied to him and everything else. And then that guy ends up running the commission that analyzes how JFK was assassinated. It's just insanity. So she has all this information and she starts going not quite public. She's not like reaching out to journalists, but she starts going to her contacts in the government. I mean, she was a member of the ruling elite. She was the daughter of, I believe, a governor. It was either a governor or lieutenant governor. So let's see yeah. Oh, sorry, niece. She was the niece of a two-time governor of Pennsylvania. So she was in the ruling elite. Also, like I said, she'd been married to one of the higher ups at the CIA. And so she had a lot of contacts. So she starts talking to these people. She probably talked to her ex-husband. She probably talked to, or we know she talked to Bobby Kennedy, who she knew pretty well. And she starts talking to all these people saying the Warren Commission has it wrong. The government was likely involved in this and really raising a bit of a fuss in these powerful circles. And I believe was threatening or telling her friends that she was going to go to the media at some point and bring them what she knew. So it became quite a problem, what the information she had. And, you know, I have Wikipedia on the screen right now just to show you a photo of her and everything. But the information I'm getting is not from Wikipedia in terms of the assassination. The information is from an excellent book called Mary's Mosaic, which is written by Peter Janney, who is the son of William Janney, who was another head of the CIA, or one of the heads, you know, not the chief CIA, but lower than that. And he has since decided that his father knew a lot, and at minimum knew of the plot to assassinate JFK, and maybe even knew of the plot to kill Mary Meyer, even though William Janney was a friend of Mary Meyer, and of course friends with her ex-husband, Cord Meyer. But it's quite possible that the decision to take out Mary Meyer was made separate from, you know, William Janney and Cord Meyer and et cetera. But if you read the book, you can see there's no doubt left if you get through all the details that she was not killed by Ray Crump Jr., this you know, poor, and I don't mean monetarily, although he may have been that too, but you know, this poor in terms of circumstances, young black man who's just happens to be on a canal path and is then told that within 1 minute, he comes across Mary Meyer, a woman he's never met before, and in broad daylight. The argument of the prosecution is literally that this guy, in broad daylight at 10 a.m. or whatever it was, comes across Mary Meyer, a woman he's never met before, tries to sexually assault her, and in about 30 seconds, when she fights back, then decides to murder her, and then leaves, and then somehow gets rid of the gun and everything else, and they never find anything linking him to the murder. That's the argument of the defense. I mean, of the prosecution. So it's a laughable story. I mean, luckily he didn't spend his life in prison for it.